Welcome into Rounding the Bases Live, episode 14, presented by Enterprise Bank and Trust. Hashtag no stopping you. My name is Joel Goldberg, and it is Friday. Happy Friday. I actually know that it's Friday. Yesterday, I had no idea what day it was. I'm still lost like everybody else, but we're grinding through this one, and I'm really, really excited. I've actually been wanting to do this show for a while, but also wanted to wait a little bit because wanted to get to a point where we had more information that made sense and that could be delivered versus kind of guessing. And we're talking about SBA loans, small business, and all of what comes with that. So I've got a great panel here. First off, I want to say that I was just on the website this morning, Casey Cattle Company, because we've been going through all their Wagyu ground beef, and I need another order. And the good thing is that they deliver. When they come down to Kansas City on Fridays, they also ship all over to all 50 states. And so I got to reload for next Friday. We had a great Taco Tuesday this week, but local company up in Weston, Missouri, veteran owned and operated, great people, and they're helping serve all of us right now. And if I haven't mentioned it already, the quality is off the charts. So hope that you will support Casey Cattle Company. As for this show, yesterday we had a little bit of a panel discussion on innovation, and today will be a conversation on SBA loans and all that good stuff. So I'm joined right now by a couple of experts. In my mind, they are experts, but they're experts to me because I've relied on both of them. So I'm joined right now by Brian Huston, who is a lawyer for Outright HR, and he knows a lot of everything. And Justin Mahoney, who I believe has been nonstop 24 hours a day dealing with all these loans and everything that's to be understood. So, gentlemen, let's unmute those mics and welcome you both in and get a little bit of a peek behind the curtain here of what's going on. And also, we're open for questions, so feel free to submit. I know there are a lot of people that are still trying to figure this one out. Justin, let's start with you and the very simple question. And you're over at Enterprise Bank, and so I certainly appreciate the partnership with Enterprise. How nonstop crazy is this right now?
Well, Joel, we got hit by a big tidal wave called PPP last Friday, and it's been nonstop ever since. And you're right, we have been working around the clock. We had to really quick and set up a new factory, if you will, to start processing these SBA loans for the government. Just to give you a context of what that tidal wave means to us, we're in 4 markets across a few different cities. And on average, we process about 500 loans a month. And we took in 3 applications per minute starting last Friday morning for about 3,000 in 3 days. So you can imagine how fast we had to pivot and create this assembly line that has about 5 or 6 steps to it. But we've done well. It takes a really good process, a lot of human capital, and great leadership. And we've had a lot of great leadership, a lot of new leaders that have emerged through this process. And what's amazing is that we're all doing it from our homes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, welcome to the world that we're all living in right now. I don't know, Brian, if you're in your home or if you're in your office, but it looks like, or I don't know, but it looks official.
Thank you. Yeah, it's a home office.
So I think that what I loved about what you were doing, Brian, was you thrusted yourself into this right away, even as there weren't answers, and basically went out there and said to people, look, let me see what I can find out for you. Let me dig a little bit. Let me help out in any way. What array of, not even services, but what array of advice are you offering? What types of topics are you talking to people about right now?
So I typically deal with HR, so employment law related. And really, this all hit me early March, right? That's when restaurants and retail were really struggling with, okay, coronavirus, what do we need to do? I don't know if you remember the day the Big 12 basketball tournament was supposed to start. That morning, Mayor Lucas said, we're having it. And by that afternoon, it was, no, we're shutting down. And that was really when I was thrusting myself into it, like you said. and thanks to some other great community leaders who you've had on this show. So the Andy Riegers, the Maiden KC guys, it was affecting them early. So I've been putting in those hours that Justin's doing now for about a month. I'm happy to hand the baton off to you for a little while. I think I'm kind of in the eye of the storm here now. A couple of weeks ago, there was a ton of uncertainty. So furloughs, unemployment, layoffs. What's the difference between a furlough and a layoff, right? Those sort of things that a lot of business leaders and owners hadn't had to deal with for a long time. So that was it then. And then the paid sick leave came out, then the CARES Act with these PPPs came out. And that's really, I've just kind of done what I think everybody in our community's done. And that's look at yourself. How are you suited to help people during this time? Going back to the Riegers of the world, making 25,000 gallons of hand sanitizer. Incredible. I just read some pages and did some highlighting, right? So not too big of an effort on my part. Happy to do it.
Yeah, you're humble. It's an effort on everyone's part, and this is what's needed too. I mean, it's what I've loved about everyone over at Enterprise. It's what I love about what Brian is doing right now too, is that we all have some type of part to play. As both of you know, I'm probably more on the financial moron side, so it's not my expertise. I need to lean on you guys. I could talk about it though. I could talk about this stuff, and so we all have a different part, a different role, different skills that we could bring to help each other out. Justin, I want to ask you, before we get into all the how this works, what people can do, processes, and all of that, let's just, in the simplest forms, break down. And I think there are a lot of people that are watching that have already been through this. There are others that might say, wait a minute, what is this? Or do I qualify, or all of that? Let's talk a little bit about SBA, PPP. You got the economic disaster one. I don't know what's that one called? AED. What, I don't even remember anymore. Right. Let's explain what some of those are for everyone first and foremost.
Yeah. So the economic disaster one it's referred to as EIDL, the acronym EIDL, and that one is not going through the banks. So the bankers' hands are not touching that. People need to go directly to the SBA's website and apply for that. That indeed is a loan that needs to be repaid, but it's on very favorable terms. It's anywhere from $0 up to $2 million, can be paid back over 30 years. And that's for true economic injury. PPP, most people are pretty well versed on it by now. That's running through the banks, and it's called a payroll protection program. It's an SBA loan. But I'll just say this, the word loan, it's technically correct, but it's a little bit of a misnomer. The majority of these loans are going to be forgiven, and probably in fairly short order, I would say within 6 months. So I look at myself more as processing a government grant, if you will. We're not really underwriting much as we are verifying payroll and other various information that they need to submit on their applications. The thousands of applications that have come in have been stressful on the system, and but we've kind of taken the opportunity to turn that stress into enthusiasm, because we, like you said, we all play our part in this, and feeling awfully patriotic right now to help my clients and friends out and get money in their hands, because so many of them desperately need it right now. So I myself have volunteered to be a processor, and I'll be working this weekend, and on Easter you'll find me cranking out loan applications to get them money as quick as I can.
That's amazing. So Justin may have the title of Senior Vice President, Director of Commercial and Industrial Banking. At least that's what it says on your LinkedIn. I'm terrible with titles, but we now can add processor into that list. And Brian, you can relate to that, because being on the HR side of things, but having all of those legal skills. And this, by the way, I know this. I've seen you speak before. We're in groups together. You're not a guy that just says, well, I'm just in HR, I can't do. You are the type of guy that just jumps in and says, how can I help? Justin just said something really interesting to me there. He talked about being patriotic, helping out. How rewarding, if not exhausting, how rewarding is this?
Yeah, it's rewarding, but at the same time, I mean, our small businesses need our help. I think we went through the cash already that's been allotted, right? And there are still thousands of other companies that need it. And this has really helped, calm the waters, I'd say, because a month ago or 2 or 3 weeks ago, it was more, how are we going to do this? How are we supposed to operate and continue to pay people if we're not allowed to operate, right? If we do need to shelter in place, stay at home. Now, at least we know for an 8-week period, we can cover that with these PPP loans, and we're all hopeful that that's enough, right? But patriotic, yeah, I think it's a great thing, but I'm still a little concerned and think we need to make sure that we do everything we can to spend locally, right? Let's help these companies the best we can.
That's a good point. And we don't know. I mean, I think, Justin, to me, that's one of the challenges right now is, and this is true, like people keep asking me, when is baseball back? I can give you a guess. It's just a guess. I mean, it's a probably less accurate guess than trying to predict who's going to win the World Series at the beginning of the year. I mean, we don't have all the information. So it's hard to say how long this is all going to go. It's hard to say when baseball is going to be back. It's hard to know all of this. You obviously have a lot of the parameters now. You're understanding how these loans, if that's what we want to call it, the PPP loans, are working. The question I have for you is, and I know you don't really know the answer, but let's just talk about it a little bit. How long does the money last? I mean, there's so many people that need this right now. It can't last forever, right?
Joel, that's the $1 million question right now. And like you said, I don't have the answer. I can give my opinion, but I don't think it's fully subscribed yet. Just yesterday, Congress was meeting to increase the program. So started out at $350 billion. They're talking about adding another 250 to it to make it 600. It's my opinion, just conjecture here, but I don't think that they're going to leave small businesses hanging. I also think that there's this sentiment out in the market right now that the money's dried up right now. And that's just quite simply not true. We're still processing this, we're still funding these, but there's kind of a frenzy, and I don't know if that's media caused or what, but I would imagine within the next week, maybe 2 weeks, my opinion is that you'll see the program increased to help out the small businesses, because I don't think they're going to leave everybody hanging.
Yeah, how about for you on your end, Brian? Again, we don't know. By the way, I should just pop up. We get our first comment in. Spend local, amen. That's coming from Cindy McAllister, and well, she also threw one of these in there too. So you can't even do the fist bumps right now. I mean, it's like it's all virtual. That's where we're at. Brian, any feeling for how long this lasts, or maybe let me flip it this way. I mean, what type of advice are you giving to clients or those that are asking in terms of how to go about this, when to go about this? I mean, Justin talked about it being a frenzy. I know I'm still trying to finish my stuff up, and I don't want to wait until May or the end of June. Beyond the fact that we all need the money right now, I still have this fear that, well, what if it's not there?
And I'll just say that's Justin's job to get the money there. But yeah, there is some uncertainty, and back to that point, that's why it is more important than ever to spend local, because those local dollars, they stay in our community, right? I'm lucky enough that I work with some really cool companies in Kansas City who did the right thing early. So Charlie Hustle, Jay Rieger, they all said, we're going to support you. This is before these loans came out. They came up with their own plans of how do we pay our employees, even if we need to be totally shut down. Charlie Hustle got a pool of money, and they closed their Plaza store before the Plaza shut down. They were one of those first stores to say, hey, we need to do this for public health, not just our bottom line, right? So again, I don't have a clear answer for you, but I think we do need to support those companies who made the right decision, because right now with these loans, everybody's kind of on equal playing field. And companies who cut their employees really quickly, they're getting essentially the same loan deal that the companies who stood up for their employees are getting. So just recognizing, okay, these are the companies who stood behind employees in Kansas City. These are the companies that I want to support. So I don't know if I answered your question at all.
No, you did. It's just a different angle. And I know you guys are coming from it from different ends. Brian, I want to hit you with one more before I move back to Justin. How much have things changed on your end from those initial early days where people like me were freaking out and and emailing you, oh my gosh, what do I do? Where do I go? How do I do this? How do I do that? What about unemployment? What about this loan and all of that? How has the tone and the responses changed from back in March to where we're at here on April 10th?
Well, I think we're lucky. So we've seen unemployment hit about 17 million over the last 3 weeks of new claims filed. Had these loans not come through, that number would have been much, much larger, because the questions I was getting, they were centered around, do we need to do layoffs and furloughs and those sort of things? So the fact that we had some certainty that, okay, there's at least a couple months worth of wages that are going to be covered for us, that helped tons of companies keep their people employed. And even though they don't have the money yet, or I don't know if anybody's gotten it yet, but I think it's coming very soon. They know it is coming. So that assurance that it's coming helped us at least push those discussions another couple months down the road. And everybody's feeling much more calm than they were. I will say with unemployment, we are going to put some employers in a tough spot, because some employees are going to be making more money on unemployment than they were working. And the employer is going to need to contest that unemployment and say, no, we have work available for you. Come work for us for less money than you were making sitting at home doing nothing. So that's one adverse effect. But I get the big drive was we need to get money to people who need it quickly. Unemployment's already a system that's set up. That was an easy way to achieve that. So there's going to be pros and cons with anything you do. But
what is one follow-up on that, Brian? I mean, what is the level of unemployment? Hey, I do have work for, and I've heard that from from owners and employers around town saying, look, they chose the unemployment instead of what we were able to offer them. Where's that balance? Is there a ratio, a number that is going to add up or make sense, or how is that going to be viewed?
Well, it goes back to these PPP loans. So in the PPP loan, you only get loan forgiveness. There's kind of two different calculations. It's the number of full-time equivalent employees, and if people's wages were reduced by more than 25%. So knowing that part of this loan won't be forgiven unless we bring people back is going to make that kind of a non-question for employers, right? It's, we need to bring you back. Otherwise, this is a true loan instead of a grant, essentially.
Going to spend about another, I would say another 10 minutes with Brian and Justin. By the way, and Brian reminded me, because I make the mistake like everyone else that it's pronounced Huston, not Houston. And that kind of actually helps, because it would be so easy right now for all you Chiefs fans out there to say that we have Justin Houston here, and we don't. We have Justin Mahoney, we have Brian Huston, and you guys I know are working so hard right now. So let's say maybe about 10 more minutes, because I know that you both have a lot to go deal with, and hopefully at some point get an hour or two of sleep or whatever it is before you continue all that processing this weekend. Justin, let's talk a little bit about how this process has gone the last couple of weeks, because I know that today you have a much greater understanding of PPP than you did, say, a week ago. From a banking standpoint, from what you do, how chaotic was the last week or 2 weeks? And I think those of us that aren't in the industry just think, okay, here's how it is. Let's go. Yet you guys are learning on the fly. What was that whole process like?
Yeah, it was chaotic, and that's probably a good word. If you back up, I just finished my 4th week at home. If you back up to week 1, The conversations have changed by the day and by the week, but initially the conversations with clients, everybody was a little shell shocked and kind of wondering what was going on. We go into week 2. There's a little bit more panic setting in because top line sales are dropping, cash flows being forecasted to tighten up. And then week 3 and 4 was nothing but PPP. And it's pretty amazing that it was signed into law and then it went live 7 days later. And so everything we had to do internally was a little bit chaotic just to build a system and at the same time trying to understand what the guidelines were, because the guidelines didn't come out until Thursday night at 11 p.m. and it went live Friday morning at 4 a.m. By the way, we had our first application at 4:03 a.m. So there was a lot of people in line waiting. But it's been pretty chaotic for all of us in the bank, especially the frontline relationship managers. We have a little bit of a different chaos than the people that are more in the trenches processing. We're getting, hundreds of emails and text messages and phone calls around the clock, as you can imagine. And so pretty much everybody under 500 employees is qualifying for this. So this puts that in the thousands. And so to work through that in such a short time frame is just, it's testing our mettle, but we're getting through it. I think the first wave, the first few days that came through was probably half of the applicants, I'm hoping, because everybody knew about the program. They were all waiting in line when the doors opened, went live. We're still seeing applications come in at a pretty good velocity, but not nearly like they did the first 3 or 4 days. So, and also I think our learning curve has dropped. Now we know what we're doing, and we're getting a little bit more of a rhythm in processing these, documenting them, and funding them. We started funding them on Tuesday. That was the first day any bank could, because we didn't have the language to put in the promissory notes. And so now I think we're just kind of churning through it like a factory. And like I said, it's an assembly line, and we're doing the best we can. So everybody, pat your banker on the shoulder virtually and give him some appreciation, because we're on the front lines of this economic crisis.
Yeah, no question about it. I want to follow up. We're joined right now by Justin Mahoney, who is a senior vice president at Enterprise Bank, and Brian Huston, who is president, owner, lawyer of Outright HR. And so we've got the banking end of things, we've got the legal end of things, and we're kind of blending all that together for another 7 or 8 minutes. If you have any questions, by all means, please send them in. Cindy threw in one more, and I know the answer to this one, but Justin, I'll just let you handle it. If we are not a customer, can we apply at your bank? Give people an idea of how this works.
Sure. I think everybody can appreciate that we need to take care of our clients, and first and foremost, we owe that to them. However, we're not being short-sighted in the fact that we want to accept a new client. So if you want to become a new client and you want to open and fund an account, we will certainly process your PPP application for you.
Okay, I want to go back to Brian first and foremost, and Brian, for people right now that are still unsure of everything, and again, look, in terms of the virus, that's still evolving. I heard somebody, and I don't know what you guys have heard, and but I think I heard somebody yesterday say that the peak is expected here in Kansas City somewhere around April 22nd, and so this, we believe, based on the medical side of things, this is supposed to get a little bit worse before it ends up getting better. What advice are you giving to the people that you're hearing, not just your big clients, but I know that you have really thrown yourself out there and said, look, here's a hotline, here's how to get a hold of me, right? And I think that if people get onto that website, they can do so. What are you hearing just from the average everyday person? Maybe not the big, I know you work with smaller businesses, but not the Charlie Hustles, not the Riegers, just from the everyday Joe.
Yeah. Well, I think I'll start out by saying the companies, your main thing that you should be doing right now is communicating, right? So even if you don't have the answers or you aren't sure what next week's going to look like, just start doing a weekly email, right? We still don't know. We want to bring you back as soon as we can, or we're still going to keep you employed, but that might change, right? So just having that constant communication, because I think a lot of fear is the unknown. So just knowing that, okay, the leadership team is still open and talking with us, they're letting us know there's some transparency here, that quells a lot of the fear. The regular Joe on the street, it's a lot more of, hey, how's this unemployment working?
Yeah.
Things like that. And I'll say that's where I've kind of done a complete 180. I used to only get involved with unemployment claims if a company was trying to contest it or appeal a decision. Now I'm trying to give advice for here's how you apply, here's how you get the most benefit possible. So kind of a neat thing, but also a huge role reversal for me.
Yeah, totally different. And I've been lucky enough with my job to never have had to really think about that. But now suddenly I think we all know there's no baseball right now. So I'm in that same role too. What really surprised me with that, and actually I would say the same thing too, Justin. The way everything's online nowadays, it's look, for the average person like me, there's still, I didn't study this type of stuff, so it can be a little bit confusing. But Brian, it's so easily accessible. Like, okay, unemployment, Missouri, jump on, it's right there. They've made this pretty easy, haven't they?
Yeah, they have, and really, we're so lucky. Just the age we live in, right?
Yeah.
We can have food delivered to our house. We have streaming 24/7. We can do these virtual meetings. Had this happened 15 years ago, it would not have been near as easy to get through as it is today. I'll also say we're pretty fortunate in the type of virus it is, right? It could have been a more deadly one. So I just hope, we learn from this, kind of treat it like a fire drill, and the next time we better be prepared.
Yeah, I agree with that. Justin, you talked about being home all weekend through Easter, processing. What is the process? You get all, and if you can correct me if I'm wrong. I mean, I think that the understanding I have of this is you have to, as a small business, you have to fill out all that application, and it's a little bit robust, and then that goes into you guys or whoever your bank is. And then you guys are basically processing, validating that person qualifies, right? How does the process work?
Yeah, so the process works that you have the application and instructions on what you need to fill out, what all the supporting documentation is needed, your organizational documents, copies of your driver's license, all those things will be on the instructions. My biggest piece of advice to anybody that has not applied yet, and this is probably the biggest bottleneck in the system, probably half of the applicants is inaccuracies and missing information, because the processor has to stop what they're doing and then reach out and get that, and then once they get it back, they can finish processing. So that's my biggest piece, that and patience. Please have patience.
Yeah.
But once this comes in, it comes into, for our bank, it comes into a central email address that's been created to accept these applications. We initially have a triage team who looks at them and sends them into a big file, if you will, that everybody can see. And then there's different people on the assembly line. And so part of the assembly line that I'm going to volunteer to be on is the verification. So once it's past triage, I'm going to take it. I'm going to verify that they've got their organizational documents. They've signed the application. They've check marked. They've initialed. They gave me copies of everything. And I'm also the biggest thing I'm going to do is verify their payroll records, match the loan amount. And then I'm going to send it down the line. And then next person down the line is going to submit it to the SBA, not a person, a system called eTran that's going to shoot them back in a quote unquote approval and an SBA number. And then it's going to go down the line to be documented and then sent out to the borrower for signature. They send it back. Then we fund it into their checking account. And so it's very much an assembly line that we've created, about 6 stages to it.
Rinse, repeat, over and over again. I mean, that's the world. We're gonna wrap things up because I want to get you guys back to work. I want to encourage everybody to that if you have some questions on the unemployment and on the and that could be companies, that could be employers, that could be employees, to reach out to Brian Huston at outrighthr.com. And if you're a client or want to be a client of Enterprise, you could certainly reach out to the bank. And it's not Justin there, but this is a great local company. Justin mentioned 4 states, and 2 of those states are right here, right? Kansas and Missouri. Big presence over in St. Louis, here in Kansas City, everywhere in between. And then I think you guys are in Arizona, and is it New Mexico? No.
Correct.
Okay. All right. I got that right. I knew Arizona. I thought it was the other one. So the final question for each of you, and it's a little bit on the personal side, but I'll start, Justin, with you. If you're processing loans and you're part of that assembly line that you just talked about, which really, and we're talking about the financial side of things, but it sounds like a hospital. And thankfully for you guys, you're not on those front lines in terms of being exposed the way our medical care workers are, but you're putting in those type of hours. How are you taking care of yourself and taking care of your family? Because I know a lot of people, myself included, with all the different things we're doing, feels like the head is spinning. It's not spinning, and you don't really know where you are or what day it is. Part of that has to do with the Groundhog's Day of being at home every single day. How are you hanging in there, Justin?
So it is kind of like Groundhog Day. But for me, it's, I've had to create a schedule that I try to keep. And so it's, work until now, go spend lunch, with my 3-year-old daughter and relieve my wife, come back to work some more till about 5 or 6, go back, relieve her for a couple hours, play with my daughter, bath time at night. So it's the routine and the schedule that I try to keep. But now that I'm going to get into the processing side of it this weekend, it might be a little crazy. But you just kind of make do. It's a little crazy right now.
How about on your end, Brian? How and you're used to stuff flying at you in all directions. This is obviously a unique time, but how are you pushing through?
Well, I'll be honest, I haven't been the best husband or the most accessible husband the past 3 or 4 weeks, but this weekend is looking like a little lull for me. So
Good.
Enjoying the weather, spending some time, trying to carve out time as well. So even if you're working long hours, Wednesday we went out to the fire pit and just sat out around there. So trying to find those nice things you can do.
Yeah, you got to find those moments. Well, I've been saying it over and over again on this show. And well, first off, and Justin, this, everyone over at the bank knows this. I'm appreciative of the partnership and the support of Enterprise Bank and Trust. And it really fits under that hashtag of no stopping you. We've all got to push together. But I think the greater message, we've got a lawyer, we've got a banker, we've got a baseball broadcaster, and we've had all types of entrepreneurs. And yesterday was innovation, and there'll be a lot more next Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, and keep on. I mean, the world that we live in, you mentioned before, Brian, how lucky we are to have this technology. So to be able to have this thing streaming right now on YouTube and Facebook, and to be up on LinkedIn later, and people can find that stuff later, hopefully it helps. And so we all have to do our part. I can't thank both of you enough for doing what you're doing for our community and being so selfless. And it is. People could sit there and say, oh, well, that's his job. He's a lawyer. Oh, that's his job. He's a banker. Well, the hours that you're putting in are not quote unquote banking hours. I'm not sure that type of thing exists anymore. So that is my long way of saying to both of you, thank you. Stay safe. Try to catch your breath at some point, Justin, especially you this weekend. And I hope that you both are able to enjoy at least some of the weekend and your Easter, and keep on pushing forward, guys.
Thanks,
Thank you, Joel.
You too.
All right. Yeah, that was a lot of fun. Thank you to Justin Mahoney and to Brian Huston, and reach out to Enterprise or reach out to Outright HR if you're looking for some help. That's going to do it. This is, I think, the 3rd week now of the show. This was episode 14. I started it on a Tuesday 3 weeks ago, which feels like forever ago. But again, I want to thank Casey Cattle Company. If you're looking for delivery, local, veteran owned and operated, Casey Cattle Company, you could check them out online or on social media and put in that delivery. I personally can vouch for it. We have been getting deliveries for quite some time now. And of course, to my partner here on the show, couldn't do it without them. So thanks for tuning in to another episode, another week of Rounding the Bases Live, presented by Enterprise Bank and Trust. Next week is already booked up with guests. I'm working on the week after that, and we'll start working into May. There is no shortage of interesting stories, guests, and expertise that I'm looking forward to in terms of people and visiting with them. Have a happy Easter weekend, happy Passover, stay safe, and we'll see you back here on Monday for Rounding the Bases Live, presented by Enterprise Bank and Trust.